Okay, so let's move into some last bits and pieces about classes. Again, this is just an introduction. There's a lot more to classes, everything from polymorphism and inheritance to abstract classes to interfaces. Um, there's a lot out there, and we're just scratching the surface. But let's move along and talk about uh, expanding this slightly more. So here, you'll notice that I have comments for my constructors, which is all well and good. It's great. It tells me what constructors do, but I have nothing about what my methods do. So it's good practice to comment all your methods as well, because if you comment on your methods, that will be able to be seen by anyone who uses them. And so it'll provide some good information. So we'll say that this calculates the area of this rectangle, and it returns the area as a double. And here, we'll say calculates the perimeter of this rectangle. It returns the perimeter. And this makes sense to have it as a double again because we could have fractional sides. So, okay, we have our constructors. We have our area method. We have our perimeter method. But there's no convenient way to print this out with all of this information readily available. There's also no way to change the length and the width in action. Once we create the rectangle, it's set. Sometimes that's something you want to do. Sometimes you may want to change it. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, let's talk about a new method. Called the toString method. Okay, and so we're overriding this method that typically exists as part of an object. And what we're doing is we are saying, okay, if I were to turn this rectangle's information into words, what would I do? Well, it might be useful to say something like this. Something like length is equal to the length width is equal to the width val. And finally, something like below that with area equals some value and perimeter equals some val. And that's pretty useful in terms of just getting a readout of everything in this class all at once. So let's think about how to do that. How would we do that? Well, first we have to return something. We've promised we're going to return a string. So it expects the return keyword. And we need to return a string. So, well, string might look like this. Rectangle. And then we can have our value here, length plus, equals plus length plus, and then let's move to the next line, plus width, comma width equals plus width. And then we want to maybe say plus, what else are we going to print out? Area equals plus get area. We're calling the method because we don't store it in an object. And then plus perimeter equals plus get perimeter. In this way, we have all our information conveniently placed. And the only issue here is that we have no line breaks. So this is all going to go on the same line. Oh, oops. We also want to add an end bracket there. So here, maybe I'll say I'll have a line break. Here, I'll have a line break. And then when we use this, well, how are we going to end up using this? Well, I'm going to use this by going into my rectangle test and either doing rect1 and rect2.toString, which we can see here how that functions. It'll print out exactly in the style that we were looking for, and you could switch length and width. It doesn't really matter. And we could also do it like this. The print line method automatically calls the toString of an object when we just have that object in there, when we just have the object in as the argument. And so what that means is that it will automatically call that method. So I could just print rect1 now, and it will print out all that information for rect1 down here and for rect2 above. So notice that in this case, we have two different rectangles, a 2.5 rectangle and a 5 rectangle. And we've printed out both pieces of information. And again, I could remove this here. And this is all made possible by the toString method. Now, we still have to go back and comment this. And we can say returns a string that represents this rectangle. And that should be sufficient. Now, if I go here and I mouse over .toString, I'll say returns a representation of the object, and this is going to the main toString method, which then calls which our own method sort of replaces. We've overridden it. And this is another aspect of Java that we haven't discussed yet, but it'll be pretty interesting later on. So we don't actually need this, and it won't display it in Eclipse. Now, finally, we want to implement things that let us change the width and the length. And I'm going to save that actually for another video. Those are going to be called getters and setters, and they'll let us change things as we go.